The news spread through the galaxy at the speed of light. The Vex-Thor extinction fleet had been turned back. Their planet killer was destroyed. The most feared military force in known space had been defeated by a species they had called primitive. Within days, something the Vex-Thor Empire had never experienced began happening. Rebellion. On the conquered world of Talax, the native species had submitted to Vex-Thor rule 17 years ago. They had accepted slavery because fighting seemed hopeless, but they had been watching the battle for Earth. They had seen humans refuse to surrender. They had seen 200 soldiers destroy the Oblivion Star knowing they would die. If humans could fight back, maybe they could too. The first Vex-Thor garrison on Talax was attacked at dawn. The aliens were caught completely by surprise. Within a week, 3 more conquered worlds rose up. The Vex-Thor Empire, built on fear and absolute dominance, began to crack. On Earth, there was no celebration. Too many had died. Captain Day Choi, Commander Ji Beck, Colonel Wu Nam, Lieutenant Arasong, thousands of others. Memorials were held across the planet. Names were carved into stone. Families mourned. But Admiral Una Park knew grief was a luxury they couldn't afford yet. The Vex-Thor were wounded but not beaten. The Empire still had hundreds of star systems, thousands of warships, and millions of soldiers. They would regroup and come back. Unless humanity struck first. "We need to take the fight to them," Una said in the strategy meeting. "Show the galaxy that we're not just defending. Show the Vex-Thor that nowhere is safe." Ambassador Jin Lee looked worried. "Admiral, we barely survived defending our own system. How can we attack theirs?" "Because they don't expect it," Una said. She pulled up star charts. The Vex-Thor follow patterns. They consolidate their forces. They rely on supply lines. They've never had to defend their territory because no one has ever attacked them. That's their weakness. Captain Tae Kim studied the charts. His face was harder now, aged by weeks of constant battle. "What's the target?" "Here," Una pointed to a system 3 jumps from Earth. "Vex-Thor Supply Depot. It fuels and arms their entire sector fleet. We destroy it, we cripple their ability to sustain operations near Earth." "That's deep in enemy territory," Captain Arasong said. She had survived the first battles and been promoted to captain after proving herself in combat. "We'll be surrounded." "Exactly," Una said. "They'll never expect us to attack there. We hit them hard and fast, destroy the depot, and jump out before reinforcements arrive. Classic guerrilla warfare." General Hyun approved the plan. "We'll call it Operation Nightfall. Captain Tae, you'll lead the strike force. 20 ships, all volunteers again." Tae nodded. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow." The strike force jumped into Vex-Thor space under radio silence. They had learned to mask their signatures by studying captured alien technology. The supply depot appeared on their screens, a massive station orbiting a red dwarf star. It was lightly defended. The Vex-Thor never imagined anyone would attack this deep into their territory. "All ships," Tae said quietly. "Weapons free. Hit everything that looks important. We have 10 minutes before their response fleet arrives." The human ship screamed out of faster-than-light travel with weapons already firing. Missiles and railgun rounds tore into the station's storage facilities. Antimatter fuel exploded in chain reactions. The station's defense batteries tried to respond, but the humans had learned Vex-Thor tactical patterns. They knew exactly where the weapons would be, exactly how they would respond. Captain Ara commanded the destroyer Swift Justice. She targeted the station's command center with precision strikes. "All missiles away." Target destroyed. The human fleet tore through the station like sharks through fish. In 8 minutes, they destroyed 3 months' worth of supplies and killed the station's garrison. Then they jumped out, vanishing into faster-than-light space before the Vex-Thor response fleet arrived. Commander Rick Saval received the report and felt something new: fear for his own people. Humans weren't just defending anymore. They were hunting. Over the next month, human strike forces hit 6 more targets: a fuel depot, a repair facility, a troop transport convoy. Each attack was quick and brutal. The humans never stayed to fight a prolonged battle. They struck, destroyed their target, and vanished. The Vex-Thor tried to adapt, but humans changed tactics with every attack. They used false intelligence to lure Vex-Thor ships into traps. They pretended to retreat, then ambushed pursuers. They followed none of the civilized rules of galactic warfare because they had learned warfare fighting each other for 10,000 years. The Galactic Council sent an urgent message to both sides. The Council representative's face appeared on screens across human and Vex-Thor space. This conflict threatens to destabilize the entire galactic sector, the representative said. 17 conquered worlds are in open rebellion. Trade routes are disrupted. The Vexthor Empire is collapsing. And humanity, the representative paused. Humanity is showing the galaxy that the Vexthor can be beaten. This will encourage more violence, more warfare. Both sides must cease hostilities. Ambassador Jin Lee responded for humanity. We didn't start this war. The Vexthor demanded our surrender and threatened to destroy our world. We fought back. Now you want us to stop because we're winning? We want you to stop before this becomes a galactic war, the representative said. Your tactics are inspiring rebellions everywhere. Species that accepted Vexthor rule are now fighting back. The stability we've maintained for centuries is falling apart. Maybe that stability was built on fear and oppression, Jin said coldly. Maybe it needed to fall apart. The Galactic Council retreated to discuss the situation. Meanwhile, the war continued. Commander Hyun led a joint operation with freed Talaxian forces. The combined human-alien fleet attacked a Vexthor staging world. The battle was fierce. The Vexthor fought with desperation now. Knowing defeat meant losing their empire. The human ships used the same aggressive tactics that had worked before. Captain Tay rammed a damaged frigate into a Vexthor cruiser, ejecting at the last second. The cruiser exploded. Tay's crew picked him up 2 hours later. You're going to run out of ships if you keep doing that, his second officer said. Then we build more, Tay replied. The Vexthor are afraid now. I can see it in how they fight. They're hesitating, doubting. That's when we push harder. The battle for the staging world lasted 3 days. When it was over, the Vexthor had lost. For the first time in 3,000 years, they had lost territory in open warfare. Commander Rixaval sat in his command ship, surrounded by reports of defeats, rebellions, and collapsing supply lines. His military forces were still superior in numbers and technology. But morale was breaking. Soldiers who had believed in Vexthor invincibility now questioned every order. Species they had conquered saw weakness and attacked. He received a message from the High Command. They demanded victory. They ordered him to gather all remaining forces and attack Earth directly, regardless of cost. They would rather lose half the Empire's military than accept defeat from humans. Rixaval looked at the orders for a long time. Then he did something no Vexthor commander had done in recorded history. He refused. I will not send my soldiers to die in a war we cannot win, he said. The humans will never surrender. They will fight until either they are extinct or we are, and they are willing to accept extinction, if it means taking us with them. We cannot win this war through force. We must negotiate. The High Command was furious, but they couldn't remove Rixaval without creating chaos in the fleet. Other commanders were privately agreeing with him. The Empire was dying. Something had to change. Rixaval sent a direct message to Admiral Una Park. I request a meeting. Terms to be discussed. This war must end before both our species destroy each other. On the lunar command station, Una read the message twice. Her staff waited for her decision. Do we trust him? Captain Tay asked. No, Una said, but we accept the meeting. We've proven we can fight. Now let's see if they can accept peace. Ambassador Jin Lee prepared for the negotiation. She knew the Vexthor would never forgive this defeat. They would be humiliated in front of the galaxy. But humanity had paid in blood for every victory. Thousands dead, ships destroyed. Resources depleted. What are our terms? Jin asked Admiral Una. Simple, Una said. The Vexthor release all conquered species. They dismantle half their military fleet. They pay reparations to the species they enslaved. In exchange, we guarantee their survival and offer a non-aggression pact. They'll never agree to that, Jin said. Then the war continues, Una replied. And we'll keep fighting until they do agree, or until one of us is gone. The meeting was scheduled for neutral space, on a station maintained by the Galactic Council. As human ships prepared to escort Ambassador Jin to the negotiations, Captain Tay ran final security checks. He had survived months of warfare. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies with his own hands. He was 28 years old and felt ancient. Do you think they'll accept peace? His second officer asked. Tay looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vexthor fleet waited. Somewhere out there, freed species were building new lives. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do next. They'll accept it, Tay said, because we've shown them the alternative. Admiral Una nodded slowly. Then we'd better start planning. This war is far from over. The extinction fleet arrived like death itself. Admiral Unipark watched from the Lunar Command Center as 500 new Vexthor warships emerged from faster-than-light travel. They were larger than the first wave, more heavily armed, and they came with something that made her blood run cold. A ship so massive it had its own gravity field. The sensor operator's voice shook. "Admiral, that central vessel is reading at 40 kilometers long. Energy signature is off the charts. It's generating enough power to run our entire civilization for a year." "What is it?" Una asked, though part of her already knew. "According to Vexthor transmissions we've intercepted, it's called the Oblivion Star. It's a planet killer. One shot can crack Earth's crust and boil the oceans." The command center went silent. They had fought hard for 3 weeks. They had destroyed dozens of enemy ships and proven humanity wouldn't surrender easily. But against a weapon that could end their world in one shot, what could they do? Commander Rixaval's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired, older than before. The battle with humanity had aged him. "People of Earth," he said formally, "the Vexthor High Command has determined that your species is too dangerous to be allowed continued existence. You have proven unpredictable and violent. You refuse to accept the natural order of the galaxy. Therefore, you will be eliminated. The Oblivion Star will fire in 72 hours. You have that long to evacuate anyone you can to your outer colonies. After that, your world will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is a mercy, allowing you time to save a remnant of your species." The screen went dark. Una looked around at her staff. Some looked defeated. Others looked angry. Captain Tae Kim spoke up from his position. "Admiral, we can't evacuate 8 billion people in 3 days. Maybe a few million at most." "I know," Una said quietly. "Which means we have one choice. We destroy that ship." "How?" asked General Hyun. "It's surrounded by the entire fleet. We can't get close enough to fire effective weapons, and even if we could, our weapons might not be strong enough to penetrate its shields." Una pulled up a tactical display. "We don't fire from outside. We fire from inside." Everyone stared at her. She brought up plans that her best strategists had been working on since the extinction fleet arrived. Operation Prometheus. We infiltrate a strike team onto the Oblivion Star and detonate our entire stockpile of antimatter warheads directly inside their reactor core. The chain reaction should be enough to destroy the ship. "That's impossible," someone said. "Their security will detect any infiltration attempt." "Not if we use captured Vexthor transport ships," Una said. "We took 3 intact vessels in the battle for Jupiter's moons. We can use them to slip past their security." Colonel Wu Nam stepped forward. He was a veteran of 20 years in special forces, calm and methodical. "Admiral, even if we get inside, the team will never make it back out. The detonation will vaporize everything within 10,000 kilometers." "I know," Una said, meeting his eyes. "That's why we need volunteers. People who understand this is a one-way mission." Colonel Wu was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "I'll lead it. How many people do you need?" 200. The best soldiers we have. You'll have them within an hour." Una had expected it would take days to find volunteers. Instead, she had 2,000 people volunteer within 30 minutes. She had to turn people away. Pilots who had survived the first battle. Engineers who knew they were sending others to die and wanted to go themselves. Soldiers from every nation on Earth. One volunteer was Lieutenant Ara Song, a young woman who had joined the Space Force 6 months before the Vexthor arrived. Her commander tried to talk her out of it. "Ara, you're 23 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you." "So did everyone who died in the first battle," Ara said. "So do the 8 billion people on Earth. If I can save them, that's a life well spent." The strike team assembled. Colonel Wu gave them a simple speech. "We're not going to destroy the Oblivion Star for glory. We're not doing it for history. We're doing it so that tomorrow morning children on Earth wake up and go to school, so that families have dinner together, so that humanity continues. That's all. That's everything." The captured Vexthor transports launched, carrying the strike team and enough antimatter warheads to crack a moon. Captain Tae Kim led the diversionary fleet. Every ship Earth could still fly. Their job was to draw the Vexthor fleet away from the Oblivion Star, giving the infiltration team a chance. The battle was immediate and brutal. Tae's fleet dove straight into the Vexthor formations, ignoring their own safety, firing at anything that moved. The Vexthor responded with overwhelming force. Human ships exploded by the dozens, but they kept coming, kept fighting, kept dying so that the transports could slip through. Commander G-Beck commanded the carrier Defiance. Her orders were to provide cover for the infiltration craft. When 3 Vex Thor cruisers moved to intercept the transports, she didn't hesitate. She turned her massive carrier directly into their path. "All hands abandon ship," she ordered calmly. "You have 90 seconds, her crew evacuated." Yi remained at the controls, flying her dying ship straight at the enemy. The Vex Thor fired everything they had at her. The Defiance's armor melted away. Secondary explosions rippled through the hull. But momentum doesn't stop just because a ship is dying. The carrier hit the lead cruiser and both ships detonated. The explosion took out the other 2 cruisers as well. The path was clear. The transports landed on the Oblivion Star's docking bay. Colonel Wu led his team out, moving fast. They encountered Vex Thor soldiers immediately. The fighting was close and desperate, human weapons against alien armor in narrow corridors. Lieutenant Ara Song fought beside veterans 3 times her age. A Vex Thor warrior slashed at her with poisoned claws. She rolled under the attack and shot him in the weak point under his arm. Another alien charged. Ara grabbed a broken pipe from the wall and drove it through the creature's eye. They lost people with every corridor. 50 soldiers died in the first 10 minutes, but the team kept moving, kept fighting. They had studied the ship's layout from captured data. They knew where the reactor core was. They knew what had to be done. Commander Rixaval realized too late what was happening. Security breach on the Oblivion Star. Humans inside the ship. Find them. Stop them. But the humans were already deep inside, fighting through level after level. Colonel Wu watched his team shrink. 200 volunteers became 100, then 50, then 20. "Keep moving," he said. "We're almost there." They reached the reactor core with 10 people left. The room was vast, filled with glowing purple energy that hurt to look at. The antimatter warheads were still intact. Lieutenant Ara Song and another engineer began setting them up while the remaining soldiers held the doorway. Vexathor reinforcements poured in. The human soldiers fought with everything they had: grenades, rifles, bare hands when ammunition ran out. They died one by one, buying seconds of time. Colonel Wu armed the final warhead himself. The timer was set for 5 minutes. "Ara, you did good work. Tell my family I love them." Ara looked at the timer. "Sir, there's no way any of us are leaving this room." "I know," Wu said. He activated the squad's communication system one last time. "Admiral Park, this is Colonel Wu Nam. The charges are set. 5 minutes until detonation. It's been an honor to serve humanity." On the lunar station, Admiral Yuna closed her eyes. "The honor was ours, Colonel. All of you will remember." The last transmission was Lieutenant Ara Song. She was 23 years old. She would never get married, never have children, never grow old. But in her final minutes, she spoke calmly. "This is for everyone on Earth. Everyone who will live because we died. That's a fair trade. That's more than fair." The Vex Thor breached the reactor room. Colonel Wu and his remaining soldiers fired until their weapons were empty. Then the timer reached 0. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Oblivion Star detonated with the force of a dying star. A burst of white light that filled the view screens. When the light faded, the massive planet killer was gone, vaporized. The shockwave hit nearby Vex Thor ships and sent them tumbling. Commander Rixaval stared at the empty space where his ultimate weapon had been. 200 humans. 200 soldiers who knew they would die. They had destroyed a ship that had taken decades to build and could have ended civilizations. "How?" he whispered. "How can any species fight like this?" Captain Tae Kim broadcast a message on all frequencies. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders during the battle, but his words were clear. "Commander Rixaval, you tried to scare us with the planet killer. We killed it. You tried to show us your power. We showed you ours. Every human you kill just makes the rest of us fight harder. Every weapon you bring will find a way to destroy. You can't win this war. Not against us. Not ever." On Earth, 8 billion people looked up at the sky and saw the flash of the explosion. They didn't know the details yet. But they knew one thing: they were still alive. The planet killer was gone. Humanity had survived another day, and they would keep surviving no matter the cost. Commander Rixaval couldn't sleep. In the 3 days since the first battle, he had reviewed the combat recordings hundreds of times. Each viewing showed the same impossible pattern: humans choosing death over survival, humans attacking when retreat was logical, humans fighting with a ferocity that defied every principle of military science he knew. He needed to understand them. The High Command was sending reinforcements, but they would take weeks to arrive. In that time, Rixval had to learn how to fight an enemy that didn't follow the rules. He ordered his intelligence officers to crack Earth's data networks. It took less than an hour. Human computer security was primitive compared to Vexthor technology. Within a day, they had access to everything: history files, military records, entertainment media, personal communications, cultural databases. Rixval started reading. What he found was worse than any weapon. Humans had been killing each other for 10,000 years. They had fought wars over land, resources, beliefs, and things Rixval couldn't even understand. They had developed 847 different methods of warfare. They had created weapons designed specifically to kill other humans, then improved those weapons, generation after generation. The Vexthor had conquered many species, but they fought for practical reasons: expansion, resources, survival. Humans fought for ideas. They fought over which invisible deity was real. They fought over invisible lines on maps. They fought over concepts like freedom, honor, and revenge. This file, his intelligence officer said, pointing at a screen, it's called military history. They teach it to their young. They study how to fight before they ever face an enemy. Rixval opened the file. Inside were thousands of battles, strategies, and tactics. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 warriors held off an army of thousands. The Siege of Stalingrad, where two sides destroyed an entire city rather than surrender it. The Vietnam War, where a primitive force defeated a technologically superior enemy through sheer will and patience. The file included something called poetry. Rixval read one. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. What does this mean? He asked. His officer consulted the translation database. It means they believe fighting against inevitable death is honorable. Even when defeat is certain, they think resistance has value. Rixval felt something cold in his chest. The Vexthor fought to win. If winning was impossible, they retreated to fight later. But humans seemed to fight for the sake of fighting itself. Death in battle wasn't something they avoided. It was something they celebrated. He opened another file. This one showed human monuments and memorials. Vast walls covered with names of the dead. Statues of soldiers frozen in combat. Ceremonies where humans gathered to remember those who died in wars. They honor their dead warriors, his officer explained. The more they sacrifice, the more they're remembered. A human who dies to save others becomes immortal in their culture. That's insane, Rixval said. But even as he spoke, he thought of Captain Day Choi ramming his ship into the Vexthor cruiser. The human had chosen death, knowing it would make him a symbol. Knowing his people would remember him and find courage in his sacrifice, it was insane. It was also terrifyingly effective. The door opened. Major Bin Kang of the United Earth Defense Force walked in, flanked by two Vexthor guards. The human had been captured during a ground operation on one of Jupiter's moons. Rixval had ordered him brought here for questioning. Bin Kang looked around the command ship with interest, showing no fear. He was injured, one arm in a sling, blood dried on his uniform. But his eyes were clear and defiant. I am Commander Rixval, the alien said. You are my prisoner. For now, Bin said in accented but clear Vexthor language. He had learned it from the translation databases. But you won't hold this system. You know that now, don't you? Rixval studied the human. Your species is outmatched. We have more ships, better weapons, and 3,000 years of conquest experience. You have nothing but primitive technology and reckless courage. Is that what you think courage is? Bin asked. Reckless? He laughed, then winced from the pain in his ribs. We've been studying you too. Your tactics are efficient but predictable. You follow the same patterns in every battle. You rely on fear and overwhelming force, but you've never fought an enemy who wasn't afraid of you. You should be afraid, Rixval said. We can destroy your planet. Maybe, Bin said. But we'll make you pay for every meter of ground. Every city, every human life will cost you 10 of yours. Can your empire afford that? Can your people accept losses on that scale? He smiled without humor. We can. We've done it before to each other. At least now we're united against a common enemy. Rixval wanted to dismiss this as bravado, but he couldn't. He had seen the battle recordings. He had read the human history files. Everything this prisoner said was true. Why do you fight this way? Rixval asked. Why choose death over survival? Bin thought for a moment. Because some things are worth dying for. Our freedom. our families, our right to exist as we choose. You can't understand that because you've never had to fight for those things. You've always been the predator. He leaned forward despite his injuries. But every predator eventually finds another predator. Congratulations, Commander. You found us. The guards took Ben away. Rixaval sat alone with his thoughts. He opened more human files. Entertainment media showing humans fighting impossible battles and winning through determination. Music that celebrated warriors and martyrs. Stories passed down through generations about people who refused to surrender. One file caught his attention. It was from a place called Earth's Western military tradition. A simple phrase. We will fight on the beaches. We will fight on the landing grounds. We will fight in the fields and in the streets. We will fight in the hills. We will never surrender. They had said this while facing an enemy that outnumbered them and held most of their territory. They had meant every word, and they had won. Rixaval received a message from the Galactic Council, the loose alliance of species that observed but rarely interfered in galactic affairs. They wanted to know about the human species. The Council had been watching the battle and they were concerned. The Vexthor have never retreated before, the Council representative said. What makes these humans different? Rixaval considered his answer carefully. They fight without regard for survival. They value ideas more than life, and they have been perfecting warfare against themselves for their entire history. We are the first external enemy they've faced. They are treating this war the same way they treated wars against each other. Total commitment, no surrender, victory or death. There was a long silence. Then the Council representative said, Commander, we advise caution. A species that fights this way is dangerous to everyone, including themselves. If you push them too hard, they may do something drastic. Like what? Rixaval asked. Your intelligence reports indicate they have nuclear weapons, antimatter warheads. Biological weapons they've created but never used on each other because they feared the consequences. What do you think they'll do if they believe their extinction is certain? Rixaval felt that cold feeling again. He had assumed human weapons were inferior. But inferior weapons could still destroy planets if used without restraint. And humans had already shown they were willing to sacrifice everything. They wouldn't, he said. That would mean their own destruction. Would it? The representative asked. Or would they see it as taking you down with them? Commander, you're fighting a species whose military history includes a concept called mutually assured destruction. They invented weapons capable of ending their own world, then kept them pointed at each other for decades, knowing one mistake would kill everyone. And they did it on purpose because they thought the threat of total annihilation would prevent war. That's insane, Rixaval said again. Yes, the representative agreed. Welcome to humanity. The transmission ended. Rixaval sat in the dark command room, surrounded by screens showing human history, human culture, human madness. He thought about the reinforcements coming from Vexthor space. He thought about the orders from High Command. Take the system at any cost. But for the first time in 3,000 years of Vexthor conquest, a commander wondered if the cost might be too high. On Earth, Dr. Suhan was giving a presentation to military leadership. She was a xenopsychologist who had been studying the captured Vexthor prisoners. Her findings were troubling. The Vexthor are afraid of us, she said. Not of our weapons, of us. They've studied our history and they don't understand how we think. To them, warfare is logical. To us, it's emotional. They fight to conquer. We fight to survive, to protect, to prove ourselves. They can't predict what we'll do because we don't follow their logic. Is that an advantage? Admiral Yuna asked. In the short term, yes, Dr. Su said. But it also means they'll escalate. They can't afford to lose face in front of the galaxy. If we beat them, their entire empire might collapse. Other species will rebel. The Vexthor will do anything to prevent that. So what do we do? Dr. Su looked at the faces around the table. We prepare for the worst. They're going to come at us with everything they have, and we need to be ready to match them. Blow for blow, sacrifice for sacrifice. The first human ship died in seconds. The UEDF frigate Horizon was leading the defensive line when the Vexthor opened fire. A beam of purple plasma cut through space and hit the ship directly. The hull melted like wax. Atmosphere vented into the void. 1,200 crew members never had time to scream. Commander Rixaval watched from his command ship and felt satisfied. The humans had rejected surrender, which was foolish but not unprecedented. Some species needed to see their own weakness before accepting the inevitable. This battle would be over quickly. Continue firing, he ordered. Target the larger vessels first. Break their fleet and their spirit will follow. The Vexthor warships moved forward in perfect formation. They had done this hundreds of times before. Their tactics were proven over 3 millennia of conquest. Overwhelming firepower, precise coordination, absolute discipline. Against this, primitive species with chemical rockets and kinetic weapons were no threat at all. 2 more human ships exploded. Then 3 more. The space between Earth and the Vexthor fleet filled with debris and bodies. On Earth, people watched the battle on screens and felt their hope dying. Then Captain Dai Choi did something unexpected. His ship, the Indomitable, had been hit twice. The hull was breached in 4 places. Life support was failing. Half his crew was dead or injured. The logical decision was to retreat, save the survivors, live to fight another day. Day made a different choice. Divert all power to engines, he said calmly. Everyone to escape pods. You have 60 seconds. His crew stared at him. Captain, what are you doing? Saving Earth, Day said. Now go. That's an order. The crew evacuated. Day sat alone in the command chair as his ship accelerated toward the largest Vexthor cruiser. The enemy saw him coming. They fired at him. Plasma beams tore through his shields, melted his armor, destroyed his weapons. But momentum doesn't care about damage. The Indomitable hit the Vexthor cruiser at 17,000 kilometers per hour. The explosion was visible from Earth. The human ship vaporized instantly. The Vexthor cruiser's engine core ruptured, sending a cascade of destruction through its systems. The ship broke in half. The shockwave hit 2 nearby Vexthor vessels and tore them apart as well. 4 enemy ships destroyed. 1 human ship sacrificed. Commander Rixaval stood up from his command chair. Replay that, he said. His voice was quiet. The tactical display showed it again. The damaged human ship accelerating into certain death, crashing deliberately into the cruiser. Rixaval had seen many species fight for survival. He had seen desperation. But this was something else. This was choice. The human captain had escape pods. He could have lived. Instead, he chose to die if it meant taking enemies with him. That doesn't make sense, Rixaval said. Suicide serves no evolutionary purpose. Why would he do that? His second officer had no answer. The battle continued. Lieutenant Hana Sung led a squadron of small fighter craft toward the Vexthor fleet. The enemy ships had point defense systems designed to shoot down missiles and small craft. The system had never failed before. It tracked hundreds of targets simultaneously and destroyed anything that came close. Hana and her pilots didn't care. They flew at maximum speed, weaving and spinning through space in patterns that seemed random but weren't. They had trained for this. Every human fighter pilot had studied something called dogfighting, ancient tactics from when humans fought each other with primitive aircraft. The moves had names: barrel roll, split S, Immelmann turn. Against advanced alien weapons, these maneuvers shouldn't work. But the Vexthor had never fought opponents who flew like they wanted to die. Hana's fighter screamed past a defensive turret, missing it by meters. The turret tried to track her, but she was already gone, rolling sideways and diving toward the hull. Behind her, her wingmen flew straight at another turret, drawing its fire, sacrificing his shield so Hana could close the distance. She launched her missiles at point-blank range. The Vexthor ship had no time to intercept. The missiles punched through the hull and detonated inside. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel. 1 down, Hana reported, moving to next target. Negative, her commander said. Your fighter is damaged. Return to base. Not yet, Hana said. Her ship was leaking fuel and her starboard engine was failing. But she had 3 missiles left. I can get 1 more. She dove toward another Vexthor ship. The enemy focused all their defensive fire on her. Her shields collapsed. Hull plates tore away. She kept flying. At the last second, she fired her remaining missiles and banked hard. The missiles hit home. The Vexthor ship's bridge exploded. Hana's fighter made it another 10 seconds before the engine died completely. She ejected just as the fighter broke apart. Her crew picked her up 2 hours later, alive and laughing despite 3 broken ribs. Commander Rixaval watched 12 more Vexthor ships fall to human attacks. The humans were losing vessels at a faster rate, but they refused to retreat. They refused to surrender. They just kept coming, wave after wave, each pilot and captain willing to trade their life for enemy ships. They're insane. his tactical officer said. They fight without logic, without preservation instinct. Rixval studied the battlefield. His fleet had destroyed 40 human ships, but he had lost 28 of his own. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Vexthor had never lost more than 5 ships in an opening battle. This was supposed to be easy. These humans were supposed to be primitive. Pull back, he ordered. Withdraw to defensive position Alpha. His crew stared at him. In Vexthor history, they had never retreated from a lesser species. Never. Sir, we still have numerical superiority. We can win this engagement. At what cost? Rixval demanded. They're losing more ships than we are, but they're not stopping. They're not even slowing down. Look at them. On the display, human ships continued to attack. A damaged destroyer, streaming atmosphere and bodies, still fired its weapons until it exploded. A squadron of fighters with no chance of survival dove into Vexthor formations and took 3 more ships with them. A human captain broadcast a message before his ship died. For Earth, for humanity. We will never kneel. They mean it, Rixval said quietly. They would rather die than submit. All of them. The Vexthor fleet began to withdraw. They moved slowly, maintaining formation, still disciplined and organized. But they were leaving. On Earth, people watched in stunned silence. The aliens were retreating. The most feared species in the galaxy was backing away from Earth. Admiral Una Park sat in the command center, watching the enemy fleet pull back to the edge of the system. Around her, people were celebrating. They thought they had won. Una knew better. They had survived the first battle, but this war had just begun. The Vexthor would study them now. They would analyze human tactics and psychology. They would come back stronger, more prepared, more determined. Captain Tae Kim landed his damaged fighter on the lunar station. He had flown 3 sorties, fired every weapon he carried, and somehow survived. As he climbed out of the cockpit, engineers stared at his fighter. It was more holes than hull. How did you fly that back here? One engineer asked. Carefully, Tae said. Then he collapsed. Medics caught him before he hit the ground. In space, the Vexthor fleet held position just beyond weapons range. Commander Rixval sat in his command chair thinking. He had sent his initial report to the Vexthor High Command. He had described the battle, the losses, the human tactics. He had left out one detail, his fear. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Commander Rixval was afraid. Not of human weapons or ships. Those were inferior to Vexthor technology. He was afraid of what the humans represented. They were a species that fought without the instinct for self-preservation. They valued abstract concepts like honor and freedom more than their own lives. How do you conquer a species that would rather die than kneel? The question haunted him as he began planning the next attack. The humans had proven tougher than expected, but the Vexthor Empire had resources and reinforcements. This system would fall. It had to fall. The entire empire was watching. Failure was not an option. The warning came on a Tuesday morning. Captain Tae Kim was drinking coffee in the lunar command station when every screen in the room turned red. The AI system's voice echoed through the halls, calm but urgent. Unknown vessels had appeared at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of them. Tae set down his cup and walked to the main display. His hands were steady, but his heart hammered in his chest. Humanity had been searching for alien life for centuries. They had built stations on Mars, sent probes to distant stars, and listened to the cosmos with massive radio dishes. They had always wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer. The ships were massive. Each one was the size of a small city. Dark metal hulls covered in strange symbols that glowed with purple light. They moved in perfect formation, advancing slowly through space like sharks circling prey. The sensors counted them. 200 vessels, maybe more. Admiral Una Park arrived within minutes. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for 12 years, but this was beyond anything in her training. No war games had prepared them for this. Open all channels, she ordered. Every frequency we have. Let's try to talk to them. The communications officer worked quickly, sending out messages in every language Earth knew. Mathematics, pictures, binary code, radio waves. Anything that might create a bridge between species. The alien ships did not respond for 3 hours. When the message finally came, it was simple and terrible. The screen filled with the image of a creature that made hardened soldiers step back. It stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates that looked like black steel. Its face had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and when it opened its mouth, they could see rows of sharp teeth. Its hands ended in claws that dripped with something green and poisonous. "I am Commander Rixaval of the Vexthor Empire," the alien said. The translation came through cleanly, which meant they had already studied human communications. "We have claimed 847 star systems. Your species is now part of our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender. Lay down all weapons. Submit to our authority. If you resist, we will destroy your world and everything on it. You cannot fight us. No species ever has. This is your only warning." The screen went black. The command center was silent. Tay looked around at the faces of his crew. Some looked scared. Others looked angry. Most looked determined. Admiral Una spoke first. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command. Wake up every world leader. We have 3 days to decide the future of our species." The next 72 hours were chaos. Every nation on Earth held emergency meetings. Scientists tried to analyze the alien ships, searching for weaknesses. Military forces mobilized across the planet and in space. Ambassador Jin Lee attempted to reopen communications with the Vexthor fleet, but they ignored every message. Tay studied the alien ships from the lunar station. They just sat there at the edge of the system, waiting. It was a power move, he realized. They wanted humanity to feel fear. They wanted the suspense to break human spirits before the fighting even started. He pulled up historical files and started reading. The Vexthor had given them 72 hours, which meant they expected surrender. Tay wanted to know what happened to species that said no. He found his answer in intercepted data streams. The aliens were broadcasting their history, showing it to human networks like a warning. Planet after planet appeared on his screen. Worlds turned to ash. Cities melted under plasma fire. Species that had reached for the stars, crushed back into dust. The Vexthor had been conquering for 3,000 years. They had never lost. They had never even been challenged successfully. Tay watched a recording of Commander Rixaval standing on the ruins of a burning city. The alien commander spoke to a crowd of defeated beings. "Your weapons were inferior. Your tactics were primitive. Your will was weak. Submit and we will let you serve. Resist and we will erase you from history." The recording ended. Tay sat in the dark thinking. The Vexthor expected humanity to surrender. They had no reason to think otherwise. Every species they had met either gave up immediately or died quickly. They were predators who had never met a predator, but they didn't know humans. Ty pulled up Earth's history files. He scrolled through thousands of years of human warfare. The Romans facing Hannibal, the Greeks at Thermopylae, the Vietnamese in their jungles, the resistance fighters in every war humanity had ever fought. Humans had been fighting themselves for so long that warfare was woven into their culture, their stories, their very identity. Humanity had spent 10,000 years learning to fight impossible battles. They wrote songs about last stands. They built monuments to defeats that inspired future victories. They had a phrase that "we will never surrender." Sometimes they even meant it. The countdown reached its final hours. World leaders gathered in a virtual conference. Ambassador Jin Lee presented the diplomatic option. Negotiate terms, try to minimize casualties, hope for mercy. General Hyun Lim presented the military assessment. They would lose, but they could make it costly. Admiral Una Park sat quietly listening. When everyone had spoken, the vote began. Nation by nation, leader by leader, they chose. When it was over, the decision was unanimous. Admiral Una sent the response herself. It was short. "This is Admiral Una Park of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your demand for surrender. Our answer is no. We will defend our world. If you want Earth, you will have to take it. We promise you this, it will not be easy. It will not be quick. And you will remember us." The message went out across all frequencies. In the command center, someone started clapping. Then another person. Then everyone. They were afraid, but they were ready. Tae Kim stood at his station and watched the alien fleet begin to move. They were coming. He activated his console and checked his fighter squadron. 12 pilots, all volunteers, all knowing what was ahead. He opened the squadron channel. "This is Captain Tae Kim. Launch in 5 minutes. Check your weapons. Check your fuel. Say goodbye to anyone you need to say goodbye to." He paused. "And remember, we're human. We don't know how to quit." The fighters launched into the black. Behind them, Earth hung in space, blue and beautiful and fragile. Ahead, the Vexthor fleet approached like a storm, made of metal and hate. The countdown reached 0 first. Contact was about to be written in fire and blood. Tay gripped his controls and whispered, a prayer his grandmother had taught him. Then he pushed the throttle forward and flew toward the enemy. Around him, his squadron followed. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they were human. And humans had never learned how to surrender.